Good morning, Freedom Church. I'm so glad you made it out with us today. Is it October already? Oh my goodness, it just seems like a few months ago we were all gathered together, and here we are in the month of October. Excited about where God has taken us as a church, and today we're going to start a new series on the book of Genesis called In the Beginning, God Created. It's going to be an exciting time, so I challenge you to share this. Invite someone to watch this. It's going to help them frame up all of the different things that are happening in our world when we start back to where it started and how God created everything. So if you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or through the email or at freechurch.org, you are our welcome guest today. And we're excited that you've joined us to come worship God today. I want to remind you of two things: that on Wednesday nights, we have a Bible study. Pastor Bill will be leading that Zoom study. So I believe the Kings are sending out an email, and we're going to put some more information on our website about that. And then also, if you hadn't had the chance to give to Freedom Church, you can go to freechurch.org/give and support the ministry. I'm standing here in our beautiful gymnasium, which at some point will be filled with our youth playing basketball and volleyball and all those fun stuff. So we can't keep this going without your continued support. So maybe you've never had the opportunity to give to Freedom. I challenge you today. Give to the work of the Lord. It's good ground, and God's going to keep using it for His glory. So why don't you join us today with your family, lift those hands, take a moment, pray with your family, and let us worship together. God bless you.
And I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, and I've heard the tender whispers of love in the dead of night. But you tell me that I'm safe and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know that we're all searching for answers only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. It's a love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I I can hardly think as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still into love, 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 love. Good, good Father, it's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am.
The world that we live in is a strange place in 2020, to say the least. We are constantly bombarded with ideas, and not just any ideas, ideas about what you believe, ideas about what we should believe. And this week, all of us were reminded that we're moving towards an election. And if you were like me and you spent some time watching the debate, it was polarizing, it was upsetting. And in the past, I remember as a kid, past debates were used to sway the opinions of the masses and to help us make a more informed decision about critical issues. But this debate left us all feeling more polarized, and each party, rather than having new ideas, they just defend their own identity even stronger. And we live in a world where rational arguments and healthy debate are now traded for insults and tirades, and because group identity is starting to trump human identity and our own realities. And it may seem like just living in this country in this time that we're losing our ability to think, in hopes that we don't offend someone or we say something to someone who believes something slightly different from us, and we are unable. We find ourselves unable to listen to opposing views. We are unable to hear what others are saying outside of our group that we identify with. And when you're immersed in this type of thinking and this group identity and the polarizing narratives that are coming out, all of a sudden 2020, and not just the election, but all of the other stuff that's happened this year, leaves us in a place where we are living in the extremities of life, in these extreme polarizations, in these extreme moments. And I don't know about you, but when I think of the chaos in that place, I begin to wonder, where can I go? Where can I find my footing in the wave of chaos, in where it seems that the waves of this craziness is crashing around us in all of these different extremes of life? I think of a God who in Psalm 29 says that when the waves are crashing, he rides upon those waves. He rides upon the storms. How can we as a church gain our bearings in all of the different waves that are happening in this season of life? Well, I came here to start a new series because I believe that in order for us to find our footing, in order for us to find a safe place, we have to start where everything started. Why, if you've ever asked the question, why am I here in the first place? Who is this God? Why do I have feelings and emotions? How am I this sort of free moral agent moving throughout the world? What about the land and the trees and all of this beauty that I see around me? You have to start where everything started. And in Genesis chapter 1, we're jumping into this series on Genesis. You do not want to miss the next few weeks. But let's start here in chapter 1, verse 1. The Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." In the beginning, repeat that after me. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It was the year 1968 when the spacecraft Apollo 8 was orbiting the moon for the first time, and no human eyes had ever before seen the earth rising in the distance. And could you imagine those astronauts looking off into the distance and for the first time ever, the human eye seeing the earth rising in the distance beyond the moon? This vision would have been so utterly other, so breathtaking, so awesome. If you saw that for the first time with your own eyes, it would frame everything. And as the entire world was watching, astronaut William Anders read these words. He said, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and void, and God said, 'Let there be life.'" He read those words when he saw the beauty of God's creation, and it was more than just a statement by an astronaut. These astronauts came to grips with the unseeable, the unknowable, the unattainable, and the only words that came out of his mouth were, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." See, these are not just the first words of a good book called the Bible. This is the very moment in all of history where our Creator and our Maker says, "Hey guys, I'm here." God decides to introduce himself. As Thomas Aquinas calls him, he is the uncaused first cause. He argued that since all things come from something that causes them, then the uncaused cause is that one thing that began the chain of existence, and that thing that was uncaused, that caused everything else, we define that being as God. In the beginning, God. And Genesis 1:1 is the moment when he says, "Hello." In the beginning. Write that down, in the beginning. See, we're talking about a worldview now. The very phrase that "in the beginning," it challenges your identity beliefs. It challenges your worldview, because in the 1950s, cosmologists, they would talk about the steady state theory of the universe, that it always existed, and then ultimately they came to believe it was replaced by the idea of the Big Bang, which shifted because now the Big Bang has this origin. But before the Big Bang, it was a singularity where every known law of the universe breaks down, and it's difficult to explain, but they would say, well, it was a singularity, and then boom, the Big Bang happened, and then time plus matter plus chance, and then if you add in billions and billions of years, then here you have this beautiful thing called life, and here we are. But the Bible turns that worldview upside down and says, no, it wasn't just time plus matter and chance. It says there was a very real moment when somebody decided to begin this thing. He says, in the beginning, God created, and time began, and the history of the world began. And sometimes you will hear people talk about the circle of life. It's this big circle of life. But if there is a beginning, then it's not the circle of life, it's the line of life. And history has a point, and it's going somewhere, and God has designed it for his glory, and it's moving in a direction, and our lives have purpose and meaning. The universe has a purpose. If someone has created it for his own purposes, then we are heading somewhere. Your life matters, and my life matters. Paul, thinking through these grandiose thoughts of the God we serve, he stood up in Athens and he says, God placed all of us in different places at different times. Why? So that we might reach out to him and find him. But listen, church, though he is not far from any one of us, for in him we live and we move and we have our very being. This phrase, in the beginning, speaks of direction. It speaks of purpose. And it says in that moment, in the beginning, it wasn't just time plus matter plus chance, a singularity or a big bang. It says, no, there is a definite being that created the heavens and the earth. There is nothing that you can see or touch or know that was outside of his creation. Everything in the heavens, everything in the earth, every galaxy. It's not a light topic that this God who created everything that we know calls us his children. And it means that the stamp of divinity is upon your life. You were created in his image. Everything was created by him and for him. See, that's why when we get into these debates and we don't want to hear the other side, or someone wants to send their kids to school, someone wants to keep their kids at home, someone wants to open the church, someone wants to keep, everybody has these different opinions, but we need to listen more to one another. We need to love one another, to care for the stranger, because every person that we meet is not just some sort of cosmological blip in the road, but they are a person that is the result of the imagination of God. You are here for a purpose because God designed you and he made you. You are the vision. You are a part of the God had you in his mind. See, sometimes we believe that God is the result of our own imagination. Look at these primitive people. They believe in this God. They need this God. They need to believe in this God to make their life make sense. So they have imagined a God in their image. No, church, it is exactly the opposite. Every animal, every ocean. This week I had to go up to the north side of Chicago and I drove down Lakeshore Drive and I realized I don't think I've driven down Lakeshore Drive in the last 10 years during the daytime. I've driven down it many times at night going to an event or that, but I drove down Lakeshore Drive in the middle of the day and the sun was just shining over Lake Michigan, and when I was driving, I felt this certain just joy and the beauty of seeing an endless lake where I cannot see to the other side. And I started thinking, man, I love Chicago. It got my mind off of the violence and the things that happen in certain neighborhoods in Chicago. And I started thinking about the beauty of God. But everywhere you go, and when you go on a vacation and you see the Rocky Mountains, or you look into the sky at night and see the galaxies or the seasons and the change, it's colder now, the changing of it, or when you hear music and the beauty of music transforms your heart, and the tones of life and the colors I see and the dimensions that we peer into, and the weights we feel when death is upon us, and the joy and the food we savor and the insects and everything around us are all the product of his imagination. You are the product of the imagination of God. He says it like this: I formed you in your mother's womb. You might feel depressed. You might feel anxious. You might even be in a place of suicide. Maybe this year has driven you down, but you are not an accident. God created you. He birthed something out of his own mind. All of the intricacies of his life were for his pleasure and his enjoyment. He created you. And see, this word created is a heavy word. It's the word bara in the Hebrew. Alec Matier says in the Old Testament, whenever the verb to create has a subject, the subject is always God. It's always Yahweh, because creation is more than just reshaping something. It's more than the way you might create a car or build something. It's bigger than just reshaping something. Creation is about establishing the principles by which something exists. It is defining the principles by which that thing exists. Genesis is going to unpack for us how we should start viewing life, but it is defining the principles by which something exists. So here's where we go when we start reading this first chapter of Genesis. You might be the type of person that says, okay, you're talking all this big stuff about this God that you serve, and you say this question, well, Pastor, I need you to prove that this God exists. You know, if you want to find out whether or not this God exists, and you're like, I'm an apologetics person, I want to know all of the details, I would point you in the direction of Ravi Zacharias. Just check out his YouTube videos. I would say read C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, or one of my favorite books is by a man named Tim Keller, a Reformed preacher out of New York. He wrote a book called The Reason for God. Keller, in his book, he argues from the fact that the universe had a beginning, the fine-tuning of the universe's physical constants, the fact that the universe allows life to develop, the fact that we have rationality at all, or the regularity of and beauty of nature. These are all things, Keller says, points us to a creator. And you can find those resources and figure out all the scientific and the data of why, and that say, okay, I want to really prove it, but the book of Genesis does not care about your need for evidence. Not because your need for evidence is not important, but the agenda of the book of Genesis is different. It is not there to try and just make an evidence and an apologetic argument for God's existence. That's not the agenda of the book of Genesis. It's not trying to prove God's existence by pointing out all the arguments you can make for God. The book of Genesis is an introduction to God himself. It is when God walks up and says, hello, hello. You know, it's like today. Here I am, I'm preaching a sermon to a camera. Good morning, Freedom Church. It's Sunday morning, welcome to service. There's so much going on. The only goal we have is to preach a sermon, but to do that, I have a mic. This mic is right here. It's connected to a boom on a camera. And the lights are set at the right tone so it's not too dark and not too light and just makes you feel like everything is normal. And that camera is recording this file on a memory card that's going to be uploaded and edited and spliced together. And then the worship team comes on a totally different day and they film it on a different day and they upload and then they edit. And my good man Carnell Pickett has been here every Sunday. I've been preaching to him by myself every single week, and he's with here. And for the record, it's not even Sunday, it's Friday. So I have to go and check the weather report for Sunday and be like, whoa, hey guys, it's a sunny day. I don't know if it's sunny on Sunday, it's Friday. And all of this is to create the illusion that it's Sunday morning, and then Corey gets all of the files, the worship file and this, and Corey just sits back and he pieces them together and puts them on YouTube and Facebook, and then the Kings email out, hey guys, join us for Sunday church. But the agenda of this is not to tell you all of the details that goes in, because that takes away from the main point that it's Sunday service. Let's gather our family around here and let us worship. That's the agenda of what we're doing. The point of Genesis is not so you can become a Christian apologist and defend God's existence. No, Genesis is first and foremost an introduction. It's a call that says, I don't know if you knew this, but there's a creator. Would you like to meet him? And this introduction, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, is something that you can understand in the ivory towers of education. And it's something that my child can understand at 3 years old and 4 years old. How did all of this come to be? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He meets us where we are at, and you have to stop. And you just got to let that breathe. And when you open the Bible, you got to just close your eyes and say, hello, God. See, because some of us, we read all the books and we go through the evidence and we stop right there. We don't really. But if there is a God and all you ever stopped at was the evidence for his existence, what a bankrupt life that would be. God doesn't just want you to make the mental assent to understand who he is. He introduces himself. so that our souls can be stirred and that we can declare like David, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Because once you find him, once you meet him, everything is different. And Genesis is an invitation for you to meet your Creator. Well, Pastor, I'm excited about meeting him. Well, just close your eyes and say, hello, God. Hello, God. See, when God, what are some practical takeaways? When God, and you can write this down, when God introduces himself to us, the terms of our relationship are being established. This is why in Isaiah 45, chapter 45, verse 11 and 12, Israel is in an argument with God, and this is how he responds. This is what the Lord says, the Holy One of Israel and its Maker, concerning things to come. Do you question me about my own kids, or give me orders about the work of my hands? And he goes, it is I who made the earth and created mankind on it. And he goes, my own hands have stretched out the heavens. See, in Isaiah's day, the people are coming to God, arguing with God, almost like they knew better how to live their lives, how to work their lives. They understood how things should work better. And God says, are you coming to me? Don't you know I'm the one who created this whole thing? Yeah, but this is what I'm thinking about, and here's how I've ordered my steps. God's like, no, man, you ponder your ways. I've ordered your steps. This is all has a purpose. See, when we look to God not as a good addition to our Sunday, but as our Maker, as our Creator, as the one who shaped our lives, automatically there is this humility when you run face to face. I'm always blown away when Jesus is walking. He's walking near the shore, and John the Baptist says, there is one amongst you whose sandals I am worthy to untie. Have you ever wrapped your mind around a bunch of people standing around a riverbank and the God of the universe, the Creator of everything, walks by? That's a humbling thought. And when we see him as our Creator, we begin to realize who we are talking to and who we are arguing with. I came here today to ask you, have you forgotten who he is? You know, this reminds me of a moment this year. I was invited to play golf at an outing at Green Garden in Mokina, and it was put on as a fundraiser for a local mayor, and I had never met this mayor before. I never saw his photo. Anywho, the person that I was going to play with, they were unable to come, so I came with my son and one of his friends, so it's just three of us out here, and anyone that could have helped me navigate or tell me who this person was, etc., they were not there. I was just with my kids, so I was virtually by myself in support of a mayor that I had never met before in my life. And so I pull up to this par 3, and a gentleman is there handing out some water and some snacks, and so I grab a water and I'm making small talk. Oh, I like to hit my ball. My son's hitting his ball, and he's watching us hit. I'm talking about my son. I'm talking to him, and I begin to talk to him, and this is just like, I began to just embellish, you know, because here I am at this event. I didn't even really know what it was about, and I said, you know, this mayor always puts on good events. And I'm talking it up, man. I just appreciate him, all of his works in the community. He's just been doing so much good stuff. And then after I'm just hobnobbing around talking about this mayor and this event and all this other stuff, I thought this guy was just a volunteer or whatever. And then I asked the question, so how are you connected to this event? And he goes, well, I'm the mayor. It was his event. And now I'm quick on my feet. So I said, I thought that was you, you know, like one of them. After I had literally been talking about him in the third person. This mayor was this, and this mayor does this. And I mean, you can't recover from this. So I was humbled out of the fact that I didn't know him. And if somebody had have told me that he was the mayor and this was his event, or if I had have done just a tad bit of research and just did a quick Google search, what does this brother look like? I would have been good. But I was humbled because I was talking to the person about this event that he put on and he set up, yet I didn't even know who he was. I think this is the point and what I wanted to tell you today. Because some of you all showed up to a different tournament. And if you're hearing the sound of my voice, you're still in the game because you didn't show up to a golf tournament, but you showed up to the tournament called life. And you were in it for the thrill. You were having a good time on your own and you're enjoying your time. And instead of the 18 holes, you have maybe some 90 to 100 years. And one day along the way, you run into a person that's offering you some water. And you said, you know what? I'm good. I don't need that water. I'm okay. Or maybe you took, he said, but if you drink this, you will never thirst again. And you thought he was just the gardener. You thought he was just the servant. You thought he was just a volunteer in your tournament of life. And you began to talk to him and you began to explain to him how you built your own life and how this is great. And you began to talk to him about him in the third person and how you managed all your successes and how you created so much and how you figured your whole life out and you got it all under control. And then you began to ask him, so how do you fit in to this tournament? And then he goes, it's my tournament. I'm not just the mayor, but I'm the King of Kings and the author of creation. And I formed you in your mother's womb. And everything about this tournament of life is for me. It is in support of me. It is for my glory. Your highest calling is to glorify me and to worship me. I have created you. I designed you from my own imagination. You are my beloved, and my beloved is mine. And he says, don't you understand? I've created you with a purpose. And I've set your life at a certain time within history so that you might reach out for me and that you might find me, though I am not far from any one of you, for in me you live and move and have your very existence. And he looks at you and says, I not only created this tournament, the whole tournament is about me. And in the beginning, I created the heavens and the earth. All that you see is the work of my hands and fueled from my imagination. And when you realize who he is, that's the moment. Like when I stood before that mayor, I was humbled by the fact that I didn't even know it was his event. When you realize it's all about him and it's his event and your life has a purpose and a meaning and that God created you and there's a call on your life and it's his tournament, you're humbled. And all of the excuses that you made up when you talked about him in the third person fall short and you fall to your knees and you say, God, it's nice to meet you.